Hi, I'm Joe Cafasso of Sunrun Solar, and I found that a lot of people get intimidated by solar. Somebody knocks on their door, you run into somebody at Costco, and they ask you if you have thought about solar. Have you ever got a solar savings report? And your initial reaction is, no, I don't want it. Don't try to sell me on anything. I don't want to be pressured into anything. But I've had solar on my own house for 4.5 years. I've also been a realtor for the past 20. I've seen solar start to come into existence, and I've seen more and more people get solar. And you really need to know what you're looking for. There's lots of different ways to finance solar if you're looking for a lease or a PPA, if you're looking for a loan, if you're looking for a cash purchase, or if you're looking for a prepaid lease. The cash purchase and the prepaid lease are two of the best financial decisions you can make if you have the excess funds to make that purchase up front. But about 90% of our clients go for a PPA or a lease, as it's called. There's a couple different options in the lease arena. So I wanted to kind of give you a brief overview of what solar does, how it works, and why it actually makes sense and how it could save you money, so that you don't feel intimidated the next time somebody says, hey, do you want one of these reports for your own house? You'll actually know what's involved in this and what you could look forward to. So first thing, I want to talk a little bit about Sunrun. Sunrun is the largest residential solar company in the U.S. In Connecticut, I could pull up a pin of your house and we could take a look at how many of your neighbors have solar. So solar with Sunrun. So this is the house I'm going to be showing you, which is actually my own house. And you could see within 25 hours, over 12,000 Sunrun customers are in existence. Now, why is that important for you? Sunrun is a company that monitors your system, especially if you have a lease. We guarantee the production of your system. So it's important that you have other customers in your surrounding area. Now, why is that important, you ask? Well, what happens is I have an app on my phone, a Sunrun app, and I get pinged if my system isn't performing as usual. And how they determine that is that they take a look at these other 12,000 homes and they see what those homes are producing at. Tons of data. We'll go into sun hours in a minute, but they could look at what other comparable houses are who get the same amount of sun as I do and what they're producing on a daily basis. Now, if one of my panels is acting up or not working properly, they could actually see that because they're going to compare my house with the sun hours compared to one of my neighbor's houses. And actually, my neighbor does have Sunrun on their house. And they could see how we're performing with each other. So over this winter, I got pinged one day that your panels aren't performing, but we're watching it. It's not necessarily a problem. Well, that's because we got a foot of snow and they covered up the panels, and this is a national company. But the bottom line is that they monitor the system on a consistent, minute by minute basis. So having more neighbors who have Sunrun, it's a network of people who you're going to be able to see exactly what's going on with your system. So when we do a solar consultation, we go through a couple questions for you. What are your goals and questions? What do you know about solar? And what is your goal? So I've had a lot of different customers. They just want, plain solar. We want to cover our electricity bill, and that's that. I've had other customers who say, we're going to be putting in a hot tub, a pool, getting an EV. So we kind of have to look at what your electrical habits are. So we could design a system that will perform at a higher pace for you if you're looking to get EV, change to electric heat, put in a pool, put in a hot tub. So it's important for us to know those questions going into it, because then we could design a system around your needs. What are your electrical habits? Same sort of thing. Do you have an EV? Do you need extra, production? Does a Tesla Powerwall really help you out? We have a new system called a SPAN that replaces your electrical panel. What's really cool about that is that it monitors, again, via an app, it monitors each circuit in your house. So you could see if your washing machine or dryer is pulling extra electricity and it has a slow trickle that's wasting electricity during the day, you could actually turn that circuit off by an app, kind of, like a smart home device. What are your expectations of a solar contractor? So there's all different types of solar companies. In Connecticut alone, I think there's 162 solar companies. We're the only vertically integrated company. That means we handle everything from sales to installation to support to financing. You name it, we're the sole provider for your solar project. You have other companies, and I won't name names, there's nothing wrong with it, but they're a installer or a dealer. So some companies will sell you a system and then put it off to a third party to actually install, maintain, support, and finance that system. So when you have a company like that, there's a lot of room for improvement in terms of communication. The person who sold you the system might not actually know what's going on with the company who's installing it, what their timelines are, what delays may happen, and they also might not know about the production guarantees, or there might not be production guarantees since the company selling you the system isn't the one who's actually maintaining it. And then your payment preferences, like I said earlier, we have 6 different ways that you could finance a solar system. I'm just going to talk briefly about the lease in this case, but there are federal tax credits. So if you have, high tax bills, income tax bills at the end of the year, we could offset 30% of your solar system. You could get back in a federal tax credit. If you're paying into income taxes that much, you actually have 3 years to claim that. So there's a lot of different ways we could structure this so that it makes sense for you. So again, we're the #1 residential solar company. Since this presentation was made, we now have over 900,000 installations nationwide, and we're over 18 years of experience. So on your system, again, I have solar, so I had to kind of use AI to generate what my solar usage is. But what we would do here is we would take your electric bill. If you have UI or Eversource, Eversource is a little bit easier, but basically what we're going to do is, if you take a look at this chart that I'm showing on the screen now, you'll see it has a monthly history of the past 13 months. So we're going to take 12 months of that production and we're going to total it up. So at the bottom here, you have total kilowatt hours, and that is what is actually being used in your house this year or for the past year for electricity. So from here, now we could design a system around those needs. Now, like I said, if you know you're getting an EV, 2 EVs, electric heat, a swimming pool, we could upsize the system to help compensate for that. But by default, we need to know what your current electrical usage is. Now, in Connecticut, rates have skyrocketed over the past years. So you could see in 2020, you were paying 11 cents per kilowatt hour, jumped to 16, 22. 2024 right now, both utility companies have increased their rates. UI just increased their rates by 12%. It went from 34 cents per kilowatt hour up to 38. And UI is going up from 27 or 28, depending on your peak usage, all the way up to 35 cents per kilowatt hour. So electrical rates for the past 10 years have basically been doubling in 10 years. They're going up 10% per year. Historically, they've been going up about 3%. Why has that changed over the past 10 years? Well, Connecticut has shut down a lot of their power plants, so we're importing electricity from out of state. So you see here on this electrical bill, you have a couple different areas. You have the supply. That's what it actually costs in electricity. So if you were producing electricity in Connecticut and didn't have to transport the electricity, that is what your electrical costs would be. But then you have the distribution. That's what it costs to take the electricity from where it's produced, Texas, Kentucky, Canada, and bring it back to Connecticut. And then you also have the public benefits charges. Now, the public benefits charges is what goes to the Connecticut Green Bank, and that actually pays for solar installation for your neighbors. So if you don't have solar right now, you're actually paying every month a percentage of your bill to go to installing solar on other people's houses. So thank you very much. So one of the other options, and I don't push this a lot, although I'm starting to look at it more and more, you also have battery backups. Now, if you look at battery backups just for the sole purpose of replacing a generator in your house, it's really not cost effective. But like I said, there's a smart panel that we just released actually this past week in May called a SPAN. And that is giving you very great control over literally every single circuit in your house. It has to be paired with a Tesla Powerwall, so they kind of go hand in hand. And if you're interested in that, we could go into more detail about it. But I would start looking a little bit more and more at your battery backup solutions. So how does solar work? So you have the panels on your house. The sunlight is collected it goes down to an inverter, and that's what converts it from DC to AC power so that you could actually use it in the house. Now it goes back into your house, gets spread out for whatever usage you're using. Now, electricity has to consistently move. It can't just sit stored unless you have a battery. So say you don't have a battery, it goes to the inverter, it gets converted, and it goes through your circuits in your house. Now, any excess electricity goes back to the meter and gets fed back to the grid. Now, you could say, I'm producing power on my house. Why do I want to go back to the grid? So Connecticut, we're very lucky. It's called net metering. And every state has a net metering agreement. Some are better, some are worse. So California, they're on net metering 3.0, which is horrific. Basically, every house has to have a battery because you're not getting the benefits of what Connecticut has. Connecticut has net metering at a 1-for-1 credit. So every credit you send out, every kilowatt you send out to the grid for storage, you get to pull back whenever you need it at the same value that you sent it to the grid. So you're not losing anything. California, and I'm not quoting exact numbers, but you might send it out for 1 credit and you have to pay 3 credits to get it back. So you're actually paying the power company for the power that you've already created on your roof. So it's not a win-win situation for you at all. In Connecticut, you're storing that at whatever value you sent it over to, so you're actually benefiting from storing the power on the meter. That's why I'm not pushing really hard for batteries, because unless you want the smart home technology or you're concerned about power outages, then you really don't have the need for a battery. So this is a breakdown of what an actual solar proposal is. So you could see here, I currently have solar, so my whole back of my house has panels. So when we designed the system, we kind of had to throw them wherever they go. But when I design a system, we try to make it as neat as possible and as aesthetically pleasing as possible. When you're looking at your own house, whenever you see our presentations, down is south. So southwest is the best solar sun hours that you have on a house. South is also good. East to west is decent. Anything north facing, if the front of my house was rotated clockwise 90 degrees, you would hardly ever put solar on a north facing roof because you don't get the amount of sun. So I know this side of my house is usually the shadiest in the yard, and if the roof was facing that way, then also I would get a lot of shade there. So in my case, when I first put solar on, first of all, we needed a ridiculous number of panels for our usage, so we needed the back of the house. But also, I didn't want it on the front of the house, so that was a good enough amount of sun for us. So when we do a presentation, we look at, again, that graph on your electric bill to see what your actual consumption is. So in this case, the algorithm came up with 8,676 kilowatt hours that we used in the past year. So now down here you could see that we have 1,085 sun hours. Now what does sun hours mean? Without getting into too technical, it means how much you're actually producing that goes to each panel. So each panel is rated for 400 watts of electricity that it could create. So when you have 1,000 sun hours, it's creating 400 watts. If you have 1,100 sun hours, it's creating 110% of that, so it's creating 440 watts. If you have 900 sun hours, it's only creating 90% of that 400, so 360 watts. So as you could see, the more sun hours you have, the better production and the smaller system size we have to create. So now you could see system size. We only needed an 8,000 kilowatt system to produce 8,676 kilowatt hours. So we needed fewer panels to create the amount of energy that we needed, opposed to if we had lower sun hours, we might need a 9,000 kilowatt system to produce 8,676 kilowatt hours. So every system is different, and that's why the sun hours really makes a big difference in your system design. Now, how we sell a lease is we look at that total production, see how many panels you need, how many inverters you need, to get your total offset. Now, your offset is how much of that electricity we could produce on your roof opposed to getting it from UI or Eversource. So in Connecticut, we're only allowed to produce a total of 102% of your current electric bill. Now, that's not an exact science. We could go up to 102%, but say 100% right now is 20 panels. If I dropped one more panel here, it might bump it up to 103 or 104%. So we couldn't do that. Same thing is if you had 98%, we couldn't drop another panel to get you to 100 because it might bump you up over the 102 cutoff. So whenever we're doing a design like this, this is a best guesstimate based on a satellite view. So our next step would be to actually go through and do what's called a site survey. That's when somebody comes out, they look at your roof structure, they measure the exact sun hours for your particular property. They do a drone flyover to do that. They look at your electrical panel, make sure that that's up to code. They look at your roof to make sure that your panels will be able to survive on the roof. So we don't recommend a roof that is over 20 years old to put solar on because we know that you're going to have to take the panels off at some point to replace the roof. So the newer the roof, the better it is for solar. So when we have our initial design, now we have the pricing. So in this case, this pricing is high. I kind of wanted to give a estimate of, kind of close to what your worst case scenario is. Your worst case scenario is really 27, 28 cents per kilowatt hour. But say you had low sun hours and you're paying for a solar lease at 26.5 cents per kilowatt hour. That means in this particular case, you would be paying $192 per month for your solar system. You could say, well, I see online free solar, dollars per month for solar. That's not really realistic. That's a sales pitch to get you to call in. So in reality, this is kind of where you're going to be for a lease payment. But what does that mean? What would your bill be with Eversource UI? So looking at what Eversource is right now, for the same system, 8,676 kilowatt hours, it's 35 cents per kilowatt hour, which is $253 per month. So if you subtract 253 from 192, you're saving $61 per month. Now that's a decent savings, but you're not going to get rich by pulling solar on your house. What does this mean for the future? So every year on your solar payment, your solar lease will go up 2.99 or 3%. Your utility bills are going up 10% per year. So next year, instead of 192, you would be paying 198 for solar. Not a huge increase. But instead of 253, you'll be paying 278 for your UI bill. So now instead of $61 per month, you're actually saving $80. So as time goes on, the utility companies are jacking up their rates significantly in double-digit increases. You're saving more and more money. So what goes into what you're buying with solar? So first thing, if you're leasing a solar system, you're getting a 10-year roof penetration warranty. So what that means is that when our company is installing your solar into your roof, we're not accidentally missing and leaving a gaping hole in your roof that's going to leak. Now, why is it only 10 years and not 25? Anything that we cause to go wrong on your roof is going to happen within 10 years. If we miss a screw and put a hole in your roof, that's going to leak almost immediately. You might not notice it for a couple months, but that leak is happening. You will certainly notice it within 10 years. You also get a 25-year workmanship warranty. That means anything we touch, any of the panels we put on your house, the inverter, any of the wiring, if anything happens within 25 years and something breaks, our company comes in and replaces it. Now, the panels themselves have a manufacturer warranty, I believe, of 25 years, but that doesn't include labor. The inverters, I believe, have a 10-year warranty. If you get a battery, that's definitely a 10-year warranty. So if you're in a 25-year lease and you have a battery, you're going to have to replace that at a cost of $25,000 at least once, if not twice, during that lease. If you lease it and we have the 25-year warranty, we're replacing that battery for you for free. And that also includes labor. So anything that we do includes labor and the panel warranty or the material warranty on a lease. We have 25-year monitoring. So again, for 25 years, you're going to have an app. It'll tell you if there's anything wrong. If there is something wrong, Sunrun will call you, let you know what's going on, and they'll send somebody out to fix it right away. Have insurance. So if a tree falls on your house, you don't have to have that system on your homeowner's insurance. Sunrun is actually taking care of that. And same thing with taxes. Your property taxes won't go up with solar if you have a lease, because Sunrun is responsible for the taxes because they own that. You have a 25-year service transfer guarantee. Now this is huge. Like I said, I've been a realtor for almost 21 years. Solar can be a nightmare to transfer to a new buyer. So I've had instances where, a buyer will qualify for a mortgage on a house, but not qualify for a lease payment for the solar. So that means a week or two before closing, the seller has to decide, am I going to scrap this buyer and put the house back on the market after I've been all packed up, or am I going to pay off the lease? Sunrun guarantees that they will transfer that lease to the new buyer, no questions asked, and it will not hold up a sale. Now, I've had this happen with Sunrun, and it has flawlessly transferred. I've never had an issue with it. And like I said, that's why the main reason that I put Sunrun on my house is because I didn't want any issue with having to worry about a buyer not being able to qualify for the lease. Like I said, 25-year maintenance and repairs. At the end of the 25-year lease, Sunrun gives you 4 different options. You could buy the lease out, kind of like if you have an office with a copy machine. At the end of the year, you buy it out for $1 or $100, whatever the value of that copy machine is at the time. So you can either buy the lease out, Sunrun will remove the whole system, restore your roof back to the condition it was before. That's option 2. You could extend the lease with the current equipment, or you could have them take the equipment off and put new updated technology on. Now, you might think that's a no-brainer. I want them to put a new system on. I don't want to have, 25-year equipment on my house. You have to look at what the price is at the time to continue that lease. The panels, and again, we have a performance guarantee. We guarantee at the end of 25 years, your system will be performing at 90% of what it currently is now when they install it. So, instead of 8,676 kilowatt hours, you might only get 7,800 kilowatt hours, but that's still a lot of power being produced. So in my case, at the end of 25 years, I'll probably buy the system out if it's, $1,000, say, because now the panels can last up to 35 years. I'll get basically free electricity for 10 years off of paying for $1,000 worth of equipment. And then I'll have another 800 kilowatt hours, which is basically 1 month of usage where I'd have to pay the utility company. So this is solar in a nutshell. There's a lot more to it, obviously, and I'd be happy to go over all of your questions and any additional information that you need. And again, like I said, each house is specific. The number of sun hours you get, the age of the roof, if you need any work done. So when we do the site survey, like I said, they're going to look at the roof. They're going to look at the electrical. They're going to look at shading, how many trees are near your house. And they're going to come back to us with what's called an SOW, scope of work. Sunrun may say, for us to guarantee this this electricity amount, you have to cut these 2 trees down. Now, you as a homeowner, you don't necessarily want to go out and spend money to get solar on your house. So we're able to, a lot of the time, cover some of that work. I just had a system that needed a main electrical panel upgrade. We were able to cover that for the homeowner. Trees being taken down, in some cases entire roof replacements. All this stuff is something that the site survey will explain to you and help you understand what your home needs to qualify for solar. So when somebody says, let's do a solar savings report, then you have to sign 2 documents so that we could schedule the site survey. Don't get overwhelmed with that. Understand, that's just one step in the process to get you all the information you need. Solar is an interesting industry. It's the only industry I've been in where you could cancel that solar agreement up until the day of installation. So we sit down today, we sign the documents, we schedule the site survey. Tomorrow morning, you could wake up and say, you know what, this really isn't for me. No harm, no foul, we cancel it. We do the site survey, you decide, you know what, still not for me, we could go on and cancel it. Say you say yes to both of those, we go through permitting, you decide, you know what, it's not for me, we cancel it. There's no charge to you. Say you say yes to permitting, we keep going through the whole entire process, weeks goes by, they call you the day before to say, hey, we have the panels all loaded on the truck, we're going to install them tomorrow. You could say, it's not for me. You cancel it. There's no charges to you. Nothing that you actually have to do except be open to hearing more about solar and understanding what is involved in getting solar installed on your roof and how much money you could save at no out-of-pocket cost. It's really the only thing I could sell to you that doesn't cost you any money out of pocket and just saves you money every single month for 25 years. Reach out to me if you want more information, and I will be happy to set up a consultation with you and help you learn about what solar could do for you.